Welcome to the Test Guild Automation Podcast, where we all get together to learn more about automation and software testing with your host, Joe Colantonio.
Hey, it's Joe, and welcome to another episode of the Test Guild Automation Podcast. Today we'll be talking with Paul Grossman and Artem all about how to accelerate your test coverage and eliminate maintenance using TestRigor. Paul, as you know, is the dark arts wizard. He's an automation SDET who has been developing hybrid test automation framework solutions for nearly 2 decades, probably as much or if not longer than I have, using a host of different frameworks. He's always messing around, so UFT, LeanFT, Selenium, Test Project, Cypress, TestRigor, and more. And he's always working on new automation awesomeness sleight of hand to upskill his automation techniques. Artem is a software veteran with more than 20 years in software development, building various B2B enterprise and e-commerce software solutions for companies like Microsoft and Salesforce. Most recently, he's dedicated his time to automation software testing and is currently working as the CEO at TestRigor. If you want to find a cool new tool that can help you create tests quick and fast, you don't want to miss this episode. Check it out. The Test Guild Automation Podcast is sponsored by the fantastic folks at Sauce Labs. Their cloud-based test platform helps ensure your favorite mobile apps and websites work flawlessly on every browser, operating system, and device. Get a free trial. Visit testguild.com/Sauce Labs and click on the exclusive sponsor section to try it for free for 14 days. Check it out. Hey, Paul and Artem, welcome to the Guild.
Hey, Joe, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you both. I guess before we get into it, Artem, let's start with you. Is there anything I missed in your bio that you want the Guild to know more about?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. How about you, Paul? I know you're always doing something new.
I am. But you cover most everything. The newest things I'm playing around with is TestRigor that we'll probably talk more about today. I spoke at a couple of conferences just a few weeks ago, so I'm still doing that. So I'm happy. And
Paul, how about a plug for Vivid? I think you're speaking at an upcoming conference with Vivid Worldwide.
Yes. Speaking at Vivid Worldwide, talking a little bit about the magic object model, the idea on that, and also on how TestRigor itself is very close to that model and does a lot of cool things out there. So I would say, check out that conference. It's going to be a ton of fun out there. Oh, it's virtual, by the way. It's VR. So if you've got some Oculus headsets, you could actually sit in a seat in an auditorium virtually and watch the presentations. It's really cool.
Very nice. Very cool. So let's dive into the meat of the topic now, how to create quicker automation tests faster using and less maintenance. So I guess first, before we get into it, why do you think there's a reason to create automation faster nowadays? Artem, you do work for a software company. Have you heard from other companies that there's a need for this type of ability?
Yes. Overall, the world is moving faster, right? It's just faster and faster and faster and faster. And if you're not fast enough, you're just losing it to your competition. And then think about it. It's just the efficiency of building things is improving over time. Whatever used to take us hours and days and weeks and stuff is now takes minutes. In our case, like it takes minutes to build test case on our system versus it takes almost a week in certain cases for Selenium.
So Paul, working hands-on with the tools and with automation, do you find over the years that not only is there more companies wanting to have automation, but is there more of a pressure on the software development or the software developer or the software tester to create the automation faster than we had in the past?
The pressure is always there, obviously. I can tell you something, about 10 years ago, I was working with a manager and we were, of course, we're always competing in the field, and our competitors would come into a client and say, hey, we're going to do a proof of concept. Let's get it. Give us about a month or two. And then at the end of that, you pay us for all that. And if you like what you see, then keep paying us and then we'll continue working on it. My manager would come in there and say, give us 3 days and we'll show you what we can do. You don't have to pay for it. If you like it, continue on. And that gave us a real big advantage. But nowadays you've got with TestRigor, I can tell you that you could be sitting down at that meeting and say, in 30 minutes, I'm going to show you something. And if you like it, let's continue on. It's just the whole proof of concept just from the beginning is just getting tighter and tighter to be competitive in the field.
Nice. So, Paul, as you know, also a big struggle people used to have with automation is maintenance. So as we move faster and faster, I assume that's becoming more of a challenge. Thoughts around test maintenance and maybe how that's slowing teams down as well?
Yeah. When you get applications being changed from release to release, you've got a bunch of things that are changing. Your element identifiers, your descriptions, your DOM is changing, and then you've got to go and try and adjust your object repository, your Selenium. If you've got the page object model, you're describing your elements, inside your classes, and then if they're not generic enough to handle changes in there that come release to release, you're spending a whole lot of your time doing maintenance. You might also be challenged by either the existence or removal of iframes that used to be a big hot thing years ago. So that's a lot of where your maintenance comes in. And if you can kind of avoid that as much as possible, that makes your whole end game so much better, because most of your time is just writing more and more test scripts or analyzing your results.
Yeah, I'll give you another anecdote about that. Is let's say you're building a website, a small e-commerce website, Amazon 2.0, and you have a button there saying buy for product, and you did a great job and you built 10,000 functional end-to-end test cases for your website. Then guess what? You migrated now to a new way of purchasing products on your website. Now you have a shopping cart, and now it's not just click buy, it's click add to cart, click cart, and click place order instead, plus editing some fields. And in our case, in our platform, it takes seconds to adapt, because like our underlying language is just one-to-one with end user actions. So you literally can do things like find and replace if you didn't have it extracted in some subroutines. So you'll be able to quickly adapt versus, think about it, 10,000 functional end-to-end tests, like it meant months of work to adapt with Selenium, right?
All right. So I guess another issue I see is obviously the quicker you need to create tests is you need people to be able to create these tests. And when I was in a large company, of course, they used Selenium, which is not a problem. That's fine. But they also chose Java, which also required people to be programmers. And a lot of testers may be good testers, but actually, if you're being honest, mediocre programmers. And using Java, of all the languages, seems to be even a harder language to really pick up. So have you seen issues with this approach? And I know there's a lot of people down on codeless technology. So Artem, let's start with you. Any thoughts on codeless or issues that you saw that maybe codeless could solve or things like that?
Yeah. So, whatever people call codeless is where you just click through the stuff. It's very, very limiting. And then remember that example with support where you need to adapt from buy button to completely different flow with add to cart and click cart and all this kind of stuff, where you have to, what are you going to recreate from scratch 5,000 end-to-end tests? It's just impossible. So in our case, we're giving basically manual QA people an ability to build proper tests. It's just our expression language is that in plain English expressing like end user actions. So this way you can record it using browser plugin, but then it's a code, quote unquote, in this plain English code. So you can modify it, you can improve it, you can actually maintain it. And that's the key, I believe.
And I also say that our tools today, we also probably would have to mention Cucumber and Gherkin.
I was about to just bring that up.
Yeah, Cucumber and Gherkin, we're trying to make the creation of the test cases as easy as possible. I mean, you've only got 4 or 5 different initial statements, given, when, then, and, or but, and very rarely used over there. But then behind the scenes, you have to build all that code. So you do have a balance of people who not necessarily have to be quite as technical in order to build those Gherkin test cases, but you also have to have your developer sides on the other side building all the support and whatever new kind of interesting functionality needs to be supported inside of that particular framework.
So Artem, you actually developed a test tool called TestRigor, and obviously it's multiple iterations now, and it seems really impressive. I'm just curious to know with all the other tools out there, I was just on a panel yesterday with the folks from Selenium, Cypress. Playwright now is the new darling of the automation scene. Why another test tool? Where do you see your tool that was fitting a need that maybe these other vendors or other tools, not saying one's better than the other, but what hole do you think your tool fulfills that some of these others may not be a good use case for?
Yeah, great question. So basically, what I've seen is that a lot of tools are great for unit testing that people got covered. Like unit test tools right now are so good, it's just hard to come up to anything better than that. Like API testing, all covered, or all kinds of tools in there. You don't need to do, I feel like, anything else. Sometimes you can do like even integration testing is fine. However, what we have noticed is that when it comes to end-to-end testing, especially involving UI, the challenge is that UI often changes so fast, it places just insane amount of tax in maintenance on people who building the test, up to the point where people for the first year, maybe they're happy and they're building up tests and this is all great and stuff. Starting from the second year, 50% of the engineer's time is spent on test maintenance. Like a titanially huge amount of time, and up to a point where we have seen use cases where maintenance just killed whole automation and companies just switched back to 100% manual just because we couldn't keep up with maintenance. So maintenance is a problem we're actually trying to help people to solve. And this is a big problem for the UI. And this is where we're doing that.
So before we get into a little bit more, so can you use it for API testing? Is it just a end-to-end UI functional browser-based automation tool?
You can call API as a part of end-to-end test, but we're not pure API testing. Better tools for just pure API testing.
Awesome. And Paul, as I mentioned at the beginning, you've worked with every probably automation tool out there. So you have a bag of tricks with everything. So I saw a few demos that you did with this, and I'm just curious to know how real those demos were, because you were able to use TestRigor in about under 10 minutes and you automated a site and reran it without doing anything else. So was there any sleight of hand to those videos? Like, tell me a little bit about your experience with the tool itself.
Okay. So there is some time compression on that. The 10-minute video is about 20 minutes to write out and edit from start to finish. I will tell you that one of the reasons I was really amazed by TestRigor was just a few weeks ago, Artem reached out to me because I think he saw me talking about this magic object model where you just describe what I'm looking for. Go click on an OK button. And I said, I've got this, this Candy Mapper website. It's a challenge website for anyone to use their tool and just try and accomplish some of the test cases. The initial walkthrough on that is just to go and clear a pop-up, enter in a name, submit an email, verify there's a message saying you got to put an email address in there, and then click another button, verify that it got submitted. It's like 10 steps. Most tools you play around with just to get through those 10 steps will take you quite a bit to do. Artem was actually kind of walking me through it, giving me a little bit of help on that. But within about 10 minutes, we just we did a record on that. We tweaked up some of the text that was inside of the recording, and it was basically done. And it goes through and clears everything, hits everything. I don't have to worry about element descriptions or other items. One of the other things I really liked that happens in there, and this is a feature that is specific for the Candy Mapper website, which is the pop-up. When you hit the website the first time, it throws a cookie in there that says, this is your first time in here, shows the pop-up, right? You go hit it the second time if you don't clear your cookies, and I know all us automation engineers, we always do that. If you don't, you'll never see that pop-up again. That can be a big challenge in automation engineers for where we're saying, well, we might see a pop-up, we might not, but don't fail the test if it does pop up there. And if it's not there, don't fail if you didn't see it. In this test case demo, we basically say if it exists. So it says, if you see it, clear it. And if you didn't, move on. But it doesn't fail anything. And that's one of the things that really kind of blew me away. Again, the time it took to create that test, it was about 10 minutes. And that's when I kind of went, wow, this is amazing. This is cool.
And I think the most interesting part, which I enjoyed when we found that close button, remember? Which was a specific challenge on your side. Want to talk about that?
Sure. So in the demo, we've got, in fact, it is that pop-up that comes up there. We did do a record and playback. And to be just to be clear, that's just a tool used to learn how to use a tool. You don't want to use it every day, but it is something if you need to learn how to do stuff. It created a line that just said click, and it gave it a really weird description. We went down and looked at that line, and Artem said, you can just describe it and say, click the button on the upper right-hand corner of pop-up challenge. And that's all you needed to do. And it figured it out. And it was like, okay, it clicks on the button and closes it. So we translated it into plain English, and it still worked. So that's another thing that really I found fascinating in that tool.
So that's a new feature in Selenium 4, relative locators. Is that what you're talking about, Autumn, where you say to the left of this or to the right of that, but it knows it automatically?
Okay, it's completely new level. So whatever is introduced in Selenium 4 is just a kind of children's play compared to what our system can do there. In their case, we were saying, hey, click on the button on top right. I'm not sure if that is even supported. On top right of the header, where was a header and that pop-up, and top right was a close button. So we're saying close on the first button on the top right. But then in our system, you can also say, hey, click on the second button on the top right. Or, hey, click on a button which is below this and on the right of that, and so on and so forth. So like there is just a completely new level compared to Selenium first. And second, again, in Selenium, you are working with low-level stuff. Then you're working with TestRigor, you're working with visible elements from end-user perspective on the screen.
So I guess because this is an audio and people can't see it, we'll have links to Paul's demos in the show notes. But how do you write a test then? If you're not using code and you're saying there has to be some sort of context that you're running the test in, like there has to be some sort of syntax, even if it is English-like. So does someone just use record and playback with a Chrome plugin, or can they just start writing click and enter and it automatically will translate that into what it needs to do?
I can answer that one. The answer to that one is both.
Oh, okay.
There's, like I said, there's a recording plugin that you can go and hit everything and it'll generate stuff for you. But you can also create your own test case and then just start writing out exactly what you want it to do. And then it goes and executes, grabs screen captures, shows you what it hit, and goes on from there. Artem, anything else you want to add on to that?
Yeah, so we actually use a combination of natural language processing and a parser, and there is a documentation and so on and so forth. So the goal, because the reason why we use NLP in the first place is that the goal of our system is just by describing just two rules, each end user action is one new line, right? And all parameters are in double quotes to remove ambiguity. That's it. That should be enough for you to be able to express what you want to do. And this is like the exercise which we're doing over and over and over again with new customers, seeing how we do it. And in most of the cases, we just are able to come in and do the test without reading even documentation whatsoever. But that's not the point. The point, though, is that we believe the only true BDD/ATDD tool on the market. The only period, because this is the only tool where your program manager can come in and express executable specification for engineers without involving QA engineering to write any code.
So I guess I haven't seen the tool. So what happens when people hear this is they think they're going to have 100 tests, and each 100 tests will have their own 100 duplication everywhere. So when you're recording and you have a login, when someone records their own test, they're going to have a login as well. Does it realize there's another login, or does it not matter because the tool will take care of it on its own anyway if anything changes? Like how do you make things reusable, or does it matter in your particular flow for your tool?
No, you can do it like in any other code. You can extract functions. You can extract it post factum. If you already recorded a bunch of stuff, you can kind of extract method, extract functions like that. But most importantly, unlike those no code record and play stuff, in our case, you can start from a place where you want to start from, somewhere in the middle. In case if you already have a function to get there, so you can record just only the last part, then post factum add that function to get you to the right state and just add validation, and that's it. just like that. You don't have to start from scratch every single time.
Yeah, and it's called is rules, but I kind of refer to them as business rules. So you can take those little bits of the plain English 4 or 5 lines, exactly as you gave a great example, doing the login, and then put that off and say, I want the login. We could create, let's say, login admin, login user, login manager, login super user. And then each one of those would do the process for a specific test. And again, just like modular design, something changes in the way that login occurs, password changes, the user account changes. You change it in just one of those components. Every test that references it is now updated.
Nice. So for some reason, I always think of this scenario as passing context between browsers, which is difficult in a lot of tools I've used. So with TestRigor, are you able to say like start up second browser and that type of, how complex can your test be using TestRigor?
It's trivial, actually. You can open a new tabs, you can start up a new browser, or you can run multiple browsers at the same time. And then you start up a new browser, they start up in completely brand new, separate instance, completely unrelated to original one. So you can actually test things like chat by logging in with 2 different users at the same time in the same session, and then test that when user 1 sends a message to user 2, user 2 immediately sees the message. So this is also quite a unique feature on our system.
That's the exact scenario I was thinking of. I used to work for a company that radiology software. So you had to be, as a radiologist, you had the machine open, and I forgot what the other scenario was, but you were, as a patient or something else, you were viewing it, and you had to pass context. It was really difficult. So sounds like it handles it. Very cool. I guess the next question is, Chrome browser extension, does it work with all browsers, or do you rate your test in Chrome and then it's able to run against any other browser?
So for recording, we only have Chrome extension right now. But then you can run it at the same time on any browser you'd like, including everyone's favorite IE 11. And if you're using external infrastructure provider like Browser Stack, you can even enjoy running it on IE6.
And if you're a Mac fan, you can run it on the Macintosh as well.
And just a shout out for my sponsor.
Yeah, you can run on Safari and all this kind of stuff.
You can run against Sauce Labs, I guess, as well, then, if you can run against other cloud providers.
You can run on Sauce Labs, anything that they support. Yeah, go Sauce Labs.
Also, a big trend is running in CI/CD. I assume, is there like a command line option to be able to interact with TestRigor to make it part of your pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. It's as simple as copy-paste of a bash script, which will trigger TestRigor, and we'll wait until it is done. And
so what are some unique features here? I think you told me it does something with email validation, two-way factor authentication. I guess, Paul, anything you saw here that you didn't see, that you don't see often in other tools that it can handle?
Yeah, the email validation is pretty cool. You have it like from day one. You have it set an email over to the TestRigor email account. It validates on that side that it sees what expected text is, and then it responds back to you saying that either it did or did not find the expected data inside the email.
So we run our own email. So you can generate a new unique email every single time you run the test, which is absolutely a super important feature to test things like sign-up flow, right? Because you cannot test sign-up flow with the same email every single time. So you must use different emails, and in our case, you can do that. Also, from unique feature perspective, our goal is to be end-to-end testing. Remember, I was saying end-to-end? So the goal is to help people automate anything that a human can do. For example, we can test two-factor authentication. Literally with text messages, we can check your text message and extract the code from text message and use it as a part of login. We can validate that your downloaded file was successful and check the contents of your downloaded file, be it like report, XLS, CSV, or what have you. We can, of course, help you to validate that your charts and diagrams look certain way we should, and so on and so forth. There are tons of different features. We can even help people to test phone calls and things like audio. For example, if you build your own podcast website where you are yourself running audio, we can help you to test that your audio actually running and the sound is actually playing, and that is exactly the right sound.
Okay. How do you do that? Are you using a third party to do that, or is it your own technology?
It's our own tech. So we basically got into this. We have customers in telecom space, and basically we built a bunch of stuff for them, and some well-known telecom companies are actually using us to test their stuff right now.
It almost sounds like an RPA tool. So is this kind of the same model, Paul, or is it, I guess you could use it for not necessarily functional automation, but you can use it for automating things that aren't necessarily a functional test?
Yeah, I think Artem's just starting to get into the remote process automation field. One of the tests that we were looking at putting together was basically searching for a book title off of Amazon, pulling off the title and the price, and then jumping over and logging into Salesforce and then putting in like a request to go and buy this book at this price. With that, I mean, you could set up automation of a lot of different existing manual processes and to let them get taken care of. I kind of see like an HR department getting a request for a job. Somebody wants to get a job and then they have to send out an email that says, okay, fill out this information, let an automated process, handle that and look at it and pass it back and maybe even search a little bit through the messaging of an email and tweak on what sort of response the HR department will have to give them and let that be fully automated. I see a whole lot of upside in the RPA field on that.
So, Paul, I also saw something in your demo. It looked like it was running on a separate server. You're running your test. It was running in the cloud. So it just came to my mind then, are you able to run tests in parallel? And does it automatically handle running your tests in parallel and running in almost different Docker instances or however it runs to make your test run faster, like in parallel?
It does run in parallel, but I'm going to have Artem explain that a little bit more in detail.
Yeah, so we are like serverless testing for you. Serverless test execution, right? Usually you would have to deal with all this infrastructure setup. You manage your own servers, even if you run it, and all this kind of stuff. It's a pain. And what if your Chrome auto updated and you didn't, and then you screwed, right? Like is your Chrome driver and all this kind of stuff. We, in our case, is just completely serverless, running in parallel automatically out of the box. All you need to do is just write the test, let it go, and it will run. That's it.
All right. So I guess the next question is, people are in love with open source tools. And so I don't even know the model list. Is this open source? Is it reasonably priced? Is it more like an enterprise solution? Like, who's your target audience, I guess, that would make a good fit for your solution?
Well, we are partially open source. We have like this plugin, which we use in browsers, open source. There's some bits and pieces which are open source. And we are free. We only charge for infrastructure. We don't charge for framework itself or anything like that. You can have unlimited tests, unlimited users, what you would expect from open source. We don't necessarily open source. However, it does not matter because what we help companies to do is we help companies to automate away a lot of manual testing. If there are a lot of manual QA testers which are executing test cases manually, then we help them to basically automate it themselves. So, and then they need some simplified tools with the UI where we can do it easily. It's not about open source or not, so you can just play with it and all this kind of stuff. It's about effective tool which actually helps companies.
That's cool. Yeah. So, that reminds me. Sure, reminds me. Then AI, is your tool an AI solution? Are you going to slap AI on it, or does it do some sort of machine learning behind the scenes?
We use a huge number of different models. So when you're talking about AI, you need to understand that just AI is a general term. You can use it for anything. You wrote your own Hello World program. It's already AI by definition, because the definition is so broad. Just you can check it on Wikipedia. But in our case, we do use machine learning indeed, because like probably the most common example would be we want to allow you to click on a cart icon by how it looks. So if it looks like a shopping cart, you should be able to click on it. And the only way to make it work is to assign labels. The only way to make it work is just to use machine learning-based models to detect and classify those type of icons and so on and so forth. There are tons of different models which we use specifically in specific cases. Like there are about 5 or 6 of them where you literally cannot do anything else other than machine learning. But we're not there's general AI. So don't mix it with general AI. We're not general AI. We just use machine learning models in the places where we should be used.
Okay, Paul and Artem, before we go, is there one piece of actionable advice you can give to someone to help them with their automation testing efforts? And what's the best way to find, contact you, or learn more about TestRigor? Let's start with you, Paul, and then we'll end with Artem.
I'd say always be open to lots of different tools that are available out there. I'm always excited about anything that will make my life easier and faster and remove all the maintenance and let me get things taken care of quicker and faster.
And Paul, the best way to find you and contact you?
Sure. Well, you can get me on email at thedarkartswizard@gmail.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter at darkartswizard. And if you want to see some of these cool videos, check out YouTube and just put in Paul Grossman, The Dark Arts Wizard, and that will take you directly to my cool videos. And by the way, I'm working with Utopia Solutions, and my boss, Lee Barnes, is a really great guy, so I got to give him a heads up, a shout out to my boss.
Awesome. Cool. Nice. Artem?
Okay. So basically, I believe that you should use the right tool for the job, right? So whatever is the right tool for the job, and not necessarily with TestRigor, who cares? So whatever will help you and make your life happier and your work more efficient. This is what you should use. I believe in that.
So Artem, best way to find or contact you?
Yes, feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. You can find me Artem Golubev, TestRigor. You'll be hopefully only one. Artem Golubev at TestRigor in there. And yes, please also check it out online. You can go to testrigor.com and request yourself a free trial. We have 30-day unlimited free trial. Thank you.
Thanks again for your automation awesomeness. The links to everything of value we covered in this episode, head on over to testguild.com/A331. And while you're there, make sure to click on the Try for Free Today link under the exclusive sponsor section to learn all about Sauce Labs' awesome products and services. And if the show has helped you in any way, why not rate it and review it in iTunes? Reviews really help in the rankings of the show, and I read each and every one of them. So that's it for this episode of the Test Guild Automation Podcast. I'm Joe, and my mission is to help you succeed with creating end-to-end, full-stack automation awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Test Guild Automation Podcast. Head on over to testguild.com for full show notes, amazing blog articles, and online testing conferences. Don't forget to subscribe to the Guild to continue your testing journey.